guys, welcome back to another coaster review, and I'm starting a new format for my reviews. So basically I'm just going to first start to go through the stats and go through the kind of queue and whole experience leading up to the ride, then talk about like the POV itself, and then talk about what I like and dislike. Then I'll still give it a final score out of 100, so it's kind of just a more basic format, talking more about the ride. But yeah, today I'll be reviewing Raptor, the Boulder and Mabillard invert at Cedar Point. So enjoy the review. Alright, so starting off with the stats, Raptor has a height of 137 feet or 42 meters, a drop of 119 feet or 36 meters, a speed of 57 miles per hour or 92 kilometers per hour, a track length of 3,790 feet or 1,160 meters, has a duration of 2 minutes and 16 seconds, features 6 inversions, it has an angle of descent of 45 degrees, and the manufacturer is, of course, Boulder and Mabillard. So those are some pretty decent stats for an inverted coaster. So now I'll get into the kind of experience walking up to the ride. So I think the first thing to mention is that this coaster's really pretty much right at the front of the park. So you see the entrance right from when you walk in. So you're going to come to the entrance, and it's decent. The sign looks cool, and then there's a test seat off to the right, and you'll get into the queue. There's really not any theming in the queue, but you do get a pretty nice view of the ride, like the drop and stuff. And you can get pretty close to that double helix at the end, which is cool. It's a decently long queue, but not really any theming, but it's okay. Then you'll go into the station. Again, not really any theming, but something cool on the station is actually before you or on the ride operator booth, there's like this license plate, Ohio license plate, that actually says Raptor, which is pretty cool. But the station's really not well themed. This ride doesn't really have much theming, but that's okay. So then you'll get on the train, and this has the standard B&M over the shoulder restraints like most other B&M inverts, and they're pretty nice. And then you'll go into the ride. Right, so for the layout, you're going to come out of the station into a little left hand dip, little turn here, and you're going to go into the lift hill, and then as you crest over the top, you actually get a pretty good view. It's one of the better views at Cedar Point, but not the best. So then you're going to go into your first drop, which is really, really fun. It's a curved drop to the left, but it's kind of interesting. It curves at first a little bit, but then it kind of turns into a straight drop. It only curves like, I don't know, a few feet, but it actually gets some pretty good airtime. It's a pretty cool drop. It's a nice sensation. I really like it. It's very unique. So then you're going to go into a pretty intense vertical loop. Great force is really tight to a awesome whippy 0G roll. Definitely one of my favorite ones, into a little straight section into the Cobra roll, which is honestly awesome. Some people say it's kind of rough, kind of jerky, but I love it. It's really, really intense. You have to snap you a bit to the side, but I kind of like that. I like snappy Cobra rolls. And it's just really forceful going up and down it, and just really whippy and intense, and just a great Cobra roll. Then to a little right hand turn into a like left helix, where it does lose some speed. Not very intense, but honestly it's not the end of the world. Then to the mid-course brake run, then to a right downward helix, which is really intense. Definitely picks up a lot of speed towards the bottom. It's just really fun. To a left corkscrew, and just really whippy and fun. To a little straight section, and then a bank turn to the right, and then a little dip, which actually gets some airtime, into another corkscrew, which is again very whippy. Then it goes into the downward helix, which is super intense and long lasting. It kind of numbs your legs. It's awesome. And then to a left turn, and then into the brake run. Now this transition does kind of slam you into the brake run, but it's honestly not the end of the world. And that's about it for the layout. So Raptor is just an awesome coaster. It's definitely a very fun B&M invert. It's currently my third favorite B&M invert, so it's in the middle of the 5 that I've ridden, which includes Great Bear, Batman, The Ride, this Afterburn, and Montu. It's ahead of Great Bear and Batman, but behind Afterburn and Montu. For us, actually ahead of Afterburn, but I've since re-riding it, I've determined that afterburn is a bit better, but this ride's just great. It's very long, super intense. The elements are really compact and tight, so they give some great positive G's. Great whippiness on that 0G roll and the cobra roll. And the corkscrews, the vertical loop is really just intense. All the inversions are just super intense. The helices are really intense and tight. The drop is awesome. It's just an excellent ride. It's super smooth. It just gives some great elements. I just love it. It does start to kind of slow down around the mid-course and that turn into the mid-course. And going through the mid-course, it does slow down, but it definitely picks up speed on that helix right afterwards. So the pacing is definitely pretty good on this ride. It's just really intense. Every element is great. Although I guess that turn is a bit weaker. And the transition into the brake run, that's probably my only complaint with this ride. That transition is definitely pretty jerky. It definitely, you'll have to brace for it. And even if you do, it kind of just slams your really whole body into the turn. So just prepare for that. It will kind of be a bit of a jarring transition. But honestly, it's really my only complaint. Every other element is super smooth, intense, and just awesome. This ride has a great location on the Cedar Point Midway. It's very iconic. I love the color scheme. It has that awesome B&M roar. It's very loud. It's just such an iconic ride. I think the fact that it's at Cedar Point makes it even more iconic. Such an iconic park. And it's just such a great B&M invert. Super forceful. I can think it's definitely probably one of the better B&M inverts out there. But like not as good as like Montu, probably Nemesis, Pyrenees, Katoon, but definitely better than rides like Banshee, possibly even Alpengeist, Flight Deck, Batman, and stuff. Although Afterburn is also another one that's a little bit better than this, but this is just a great ride, and it's definitely a great classic B&M. I just love those old school 90s B&M inverts, and this ride's no exception. It's great. There's actually a clone of this ride, for those of you who didn't know, out in France, Monster at Alligator Park. So that is kind of interesting. It's one of the few clone B&M inverts aside from like Batman. That one doesn't have the actual trims on the mid-course though, so that's one's probably a bit better. But it's really bare. It's just a white coaster in a field. So yeah, but that's cool. But yeah, Raptor's just amazing. It's smooth, intense, whippy, compact. It's a long ride, very well paced. It is just super intense, forceful, great drop. The restraints are great. I love those classic B&M over-the-shoulder restraints. If you keep your head forward on the corkscrews, you really don't get any head banging on this ride. And they're just nice. They even allow for some airtime. Like, you get that airtime pop towards the end of the ride. You actually get a tiny bit of airtime, which is cool to get airtime on a B&M invert because it's fairly rare. And on the drop, you kind of get some airtime. The drop's kind of weird. As you're starting to go straight, you kind of get airtime. And the twist is fun. It's definitely cool. It's a interesting drop, but I definitely like it. It's a really neat sensation. Definitely back row is the best on this ride, like on all B&M inverts. It's just a lot more intense. But front's good too. I have done both. But back is definitely better. I just love this ride. I definitely like to marathon it. I have marathon this ride a bit. During my last trip to Cedar Point, actually on my last day right before the park closed, I marathon this because really, like after like 6 p.m. it doesn't really have a line. So I got like I think 3 or 4 rides in a row without getting off the train. Back rows, super intense and awesome. Definitely a great night ride. That's really cool. The view's definitely good. You can see like Gatekeeper and stuff in the beach, but in Wicked Twister. But I would say there's some better views here, like Steel Vengeance, Millennium Force, Valrian, Magnum XL 200, even Dragster for like the half second that you get that view is a bit better. But it's definitely really good. It's definitely one of the better coasters at Cedar Point, probably like number 5 or 6. It does make my top 25 coasters. It is one of my favorite B&Ms, probably like top 5 B&M. It's just, well, I don't know. I think it is in my top 5 B&Ms, or maybe a little bit out of it. I don't know, but it's definitely a great ride. Definitely one of the better coasters out there. One of the better B&Ms. Definitely definitely one of the better inverts. Just really, it's almost perfect. Just my only complaint is that, I guess it does lose some speed around the mid-course. And that final transition into the brake run does kind of hurt, but it's honestly not the end of the world. It's just a great ride. I love Raptor. It's just an awesome B&M. So for a final score, I'm going to give it a solid 88 out of 100. I think it's pretty much an almost perfect ride. Really, the only reason it's not getting higher scores because I don't think B&M inverts are the best coasters out there. There are some of my favorite models, but there are some rides that I do prefer more. Like some of the RMCs and like Intamin Hypers and stuff. But this is just an awesome coaster. I love Raptor. Definitely go and check it out when you're at Cedar Point. It's right at the front of the park. It's super iconic. It's just such a fun ride. And it's just awesome. So that's about it for my review of Raptor at Cedar Point. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.